welcome back for another chapter from our book, The Monster in the Lake. We're on chapter 4 today, and that's the library. Now, before we get going with the story, we had some brilliant questions coming into our Seesaw account, particularly one from Flynn that wants to know if the monster in the lake is inspired by a loch or a lake in Scotland. I wonder which one you're talking about. We've sent those questions off to the author, Louie Stowell, and hopefully we'll get a response very, very soon. So here goes with today's chapter, The Library. When they arrived at the library, they asked Greg, the assistant librarian, for help. But when they described what was happening, Greg shrugged, making his long, wavy beard sway. "Talking dogs? Not my problem," he mumbled. "Plus, I'm knocking off in an hour. It's nearly 5 and I don't want to be starting anything complicated that'll make me late home. The darts is on." At the best of times, Greg was not very helpful. And when Faith was away, he was even less helpful. Because being in charge of a library alone put him in a foul mood. "Please, Greg," said Alita, "are there any books about this sort of thing? Has it happened before?" Greg grunted. "Nothing new under the sun. Everything's happened before. One time or another. Try the magical history section in the stacks." So the children headed down to the library stacks, through a bookshelf at the back of the library floor. Kit pulled at one of the books and said, "The spells that open the door. Là-bas!" Her fingers glowed, and the entire shelf slid silently aside. "That never gets less cool," said Josh. Kit grinned. He wasn't wrong. "Let's go," she said. "Ina," she said, touching her forehead and focusing on the air above her. A magical light appeared, and they walked down the dark, book-lined corridor that led to the book wood. The books themselves sat on shelves further down into the stacks, grew trees that had once been books, with spells carved into their trunks and pages for leaves. But today, they were interested in the books in the corridor, which was where the magical history books were kept. They ended up with more books than they could carry, so Kit had to perform a lifting spell to take some of the weight, which she couldn't manage at the same time as the light spell. So they stumbled out of the corridor in darkness, scuffling and bumping until they emerged at the end into the light of the spellbook trees. "I love magic and everything, but next time," said Josh, "I'm going to bring a torch." In the bookwood, the smell of old paper mingled with fresh green smell. Kit smiled. It always gave her a little bubble of joy when she walked down there. A wood beneath the library, where the trees were alive and magic filled the air. "Where's Dogon?" asked Alita. Usually, the little half-dog, half-dragon would rush to see Alita, his favourite human, whenever she came down there. But he was nowhere to be seen today. "Maybe he's sleeping," said Josh. "Well, he is half-dragon," said Alita, "and they sleep all the time, so that would make sense. But I wish I knew where he was." They sat in the common room inside a huge tree in the middle of the forest. Josh had a book on his lap and was reading out passages. "Apparently animals have started talking without anyone performing spells at different times through history, usually when something big was going on in the magical world." "Like what?" asked Kit. "Like during a war between wizards," said Josh. "Or when a dragon was waking up." "Oh!" Alita sat up very straight. Her eyes were wide. "You don't think it could be because Salt nearly woke our dragon?" Josh thought about this. "Well, maybe. That was a month ago, though, and in this book it said all the weird talking animal stuff happened at the same time as the dragon waking up." "Maybe a dragon is waking up just now. It's just happening somewhere a bit further away," said Kit. "Should we tell Greg?" "He didn't seem worried that animals were talking, though," said Alita, "and surely he'd know if a dragon was waking up." "I suppose so," said Kit, not feeling entirely comforted. Greg never seemed quite in the same world as everyone else, so she wasn't sure if him being calm was a good sign that everything was fine. Kit suspected that Greg's beard could be on fire, and it would still take him 10 minutes to notice. Didn't Faith say the Wizards' Council being extra cautious at the moment, keeping an eye on all the dragons to make sure none of them were at risk of being woken up, said Alita. After what happened with Draca and Salt nearly waking her up? Maybe we should ask Draca herself what's going on, whether she's feeling wakeful or another dragon is, suggested Kit. I mean, surely dragons know more about dragons than books do. But I've still got 10 books I haven't even looked at yet, complained Josh. Well, why don't I go talk to Draca while you keep reading, said Kit. Said Josh, who was already deep in the next book. Good. I'll come with you, Kit, said Alita. I want to ask Draca where Dogon is. It's not like him to hide. Kit and Alita descended the stairs to the dragon's cave beneath the book world. Kit felt her stomach tighten as she reached the bottom of the staircase. What if the dragon was waking up again? The building wasn't shaking, at least. That was a good sign. When Salt had nearly woken Draca up, the whole building shook and smoke rose up through the library. Sure enough, when Kit entered Draca's cave, the dragon was fast asleep. Little puffs of smoke rose out of the nostrils of her long snout, rising up to the high stone ceilings. Kit held out her hand to Alita. Shall we join her dreams? Alita took her hand and grinned. I could spend days in there, she said. You know, if it wouldn't drain you of all your power and leave you as limp as a wet sock. It took a lot of magic to remain in the dragon's dream, especially if you were taking someone who wasn't a wizard in there, so they'd have to be quick. The two girls knelt beside the dragon, and Kit put one hand on Draca's flank, holding Alita's hand with the other. The dragon was cold to the touch, and the scales were rough, with sharp edges. Kit's fingers began to tingle as the dragon's magic flowed through them. Tickles, murmured Alita, feeling it too. A rush of heat washed through Kit, and then everything went dark. When the light returned, they were inside the dragon's dream. Today, Draca was dreaming of a yellow brick road leading to a glistening green castle. I don't know if you've heard of anywhere that's like that before. Let me know. The dragon was sitting in a field of red poppies beside the road, watching them curiously with bright green eyes. Just then, a monkey flew overhead on feathery wings. Friends, said Draca. Welcome. She gestured around with her claws. Someone read this book in the world above last week, or years ago, or now? She shook her head. Human time is hard for me. Kit smiled. She'd been the one to read some of The Wizard of Oz in the library for story time last week. The book was set in a magical land called Oz, where a wizard lived in a shining green city, and a girl called Dorothy had to journey along a yellow brick road, fighting witches and evil flying monkeys with the help of her friends. The only disappointment for Kit was that Dorothy didn't turn out to be a wizard, although she did have magic shoes, so that was something. I'm glad you liked it, said Kit. You feed my dreams, said Draca approvingly. It's a good story, said Alita. No, it's not as good as the Danny Fandango books. Draca's eyes lit up. Will you read me the new one soon? Danny Fandango and the Crown of Bones? She asked. As the dragon spoke, their surroundings changed, and now they were in a stone room with criss-cross-shaped windows. Draca was curled up on a vast, dragon-sized, four-poster bed, and the children were sitting at the foot of it. Where are we? Asked Kit. Lara Fandango's bedroom from Book 2, in the High Tower, when she and Danny are adopted by a queen. Only her bed isn't usually that big, said Alita. It's my dream, said Draca. Everything is me-sized here. Draca grinned, showing her shining fangs. No matter how often Kit came to see Draca, she could never quite get used to chatting as friends with a creature that looked like she could eat you in a single chomp. "I'd never eat you, Kit Spencer," said Draca. Alita laughed. "Don't think bad thoughts about mind-reading dragons, Kit." "Sorry," blushed Kit, "I forgot." But Kit's mind wasn't the only one that Draca could read. The creature turned her scaly head towards Alita. "You're worried about Dogon, aren't you?" "I'm worried too. The little one has been visiting me in dreams," said Draca. "You mean like we are now?" said Alita. "I didn't know he could do that." "No. When he sleeps, he wanders into my dreams. He's been wandering more lately." "You mean he's been sleeping a lot?" suggested Kit. "Yes," said Draca. "He came to play with me when I was on a ship sailing around the world, and when I was a monkey who set fire to a city full of demons." "I hope he's not sick," said Alita. "I'm sorry, but he is," said Draca. "And he's getting weaker and weaker." "Oh no," said Alita. She gripped Kit's hand, and Kit gave hers a squeeze back. "We came to ask something else too," said Kit. "We wanted to check if you were feeling like waking up, or if you know of anything else funny going on with magic." Draca didn't reply at first, her eyes fixed on the distance, and a little burst of flame rose out of each nostril with a huff, as though she was sighing. Around them, the world shifted. Sparkles of magic filled the air, moving gently at first, then beginning to whirl faster and faster until Kit felt dizzy. "There's something new," said Draca, "above the whirl of magic. It's not above, not in the library. It's beyond, where things are green and there is water." She shuddered. "Something's not quite right. Something sad." "What does that mean?" said Kit. "Green?" said Alita. She tapped Kit's arm excitedly. "It's the park. It's in the park." "Someone is there. Someone new. Too much wild. Too strong." The whirling magic faded around them and was replaced with an image of the dragon's cave. Draca gave out a little roar. "Are we bothering you?" asked Alita, looking up worriedly. You're not waking up, are you? If you're going to wake up, please tell me so I can warn my family to get out of town." "Waking up? I'm not sure. I think you should go upstairs and read me a story just in case," said Draca, with a sly grin. Alita grinned. "Sneaky Draca, but I love you anyway." "I do think we need to go," said Kit. "I feel drained." She yawned. Her body was heavy, and her mind felt like sludge. To leave the dragon's dream, all Kit had to do was say goodbye. "Bye, Draca. See you soon," she said. And with a flash of black, they were back beside the sleeping dragon. Kit felt utterly exhausted, like she'd just run a mile in lead shoes, carrying her entire family on her back. "Phew," she said. "I'm not looking forward to the stairs." "Do you want to sit for a bit?" asked Alita. There was a little stone bench outside the dragon's cave, and the two girls sat. The stone was cold against Kit's bare legs. "What do you think that meant about the park?" asked Kit. "She said there's someone new," said Alita. "A wizard, maybe? Visiting from somewhere?" "Maybe, though Draca said too much wild, but wizards don't bring wild magic with them. That comes from dragons," objected Kit. "And I think Draca would have mentioned another dragon if there was one living under the park." Alita thought about this. Yes, wild magic comes from dragons, but not just dragons. Other magical creatures give off wild magic too. "They do?" asked Kit. "You should read more," said Alita. Kit groaned. Ugh, I don't think I could physically read any more than I already do. I think I've got librarian's elbow from turning too many pages. That is absolutely not a thing, said Alita. After a rest and a very slow climb, they rejoined Josh upstairs in the common room. I've found something, he said, tapping his book and looking up in excitement. Us too. Draco was really helpful, said Alita. Though she also said Drogon is sick, which is... She tailed off, biting her lip. But what did you find? I read that too much wild magic in a single place can cause spontaneous spells, such as, check this out, animals talking. But also, Josh was pointing to places in his book and then flipping the pages faster than a human could possibly read. Or at least faster than Kit could read. Also, Josh went on, eyes on fire with excitement, too much wild magic in the place can also make wizard spells go wrong. Kit almost yelled with relief. I knew it wasn't me getting a firebell spell wrong. It was wild magic, not me. She started doing a little victory dance. Then she stopped when she realised how sore and tired she was from keeping Alita and herself in Draca's dreams. She sat down on a chair, ever so gently. What did Draca tell you about what's causing the animals to talk? Asked Josh. Alita told Josh their theory that it was a magical creature living in the park that shouldn't be there. Not a dragon. Something else. Could it be underground? Asked Josh. Could it be living in a sewer beneath the park? Suggested Alita. Maybe it's a magical rat. That's gross, said Kit. She grinned. I love it. I hope it's not a sewer creature though, said Josh. My mum would kill me if I came home smelling like a sewer. Speaking of coming home, my mum's expecting me for dinner soon, said Alita. Shall we go and search the park tomorrow then? Asked Kit. The others agreed. Just wait a few minutes though, said Alita. I need to go and look for Drogon. Draca said he's sick and he's been sleeping a lot. I know all of his favourite places for naps. Alita came back a few minutes later, holding Drogon in her arms. The furry, puppy-like creature was still half asleep, letting out drowsy growls. She put him down and stretched out his red wings, and he took a few feeble steps. Are you okay, Drogon? She turned to the others. I found him sleeping beneath a tree. He'd made a nest out of moss. Drogon growled, as though to prove he was fine. He flapped groggily in the air, displaying his scaly green belly. He only made it a little way before he started to sink back to the ground, exhausted. He's really not himself, said Alita. She kneeled down to stroke Drogon. I think he really is sick. Kit and Josh clustered around. His scales look sort of flaky, said Josh. Maybe it's not serious, said Kit. Maybe just like a magical cold. Don't like it, said Alita. I wish the wild magic was making Drogon talk. Then he could tell us what's wrong. Alita put her hand on Drogon's head and he leaned into it, demanding lots of strokes. When Faith comes back, maybe she can take him to a dragon vet, suggested Kit. When is Faith coming back? Asked Josh. She didn't say. Just that she had a wizard's council meeting, said Kit. Alita carried a sleepy Drogon to a soft patch of moss and laid him down to rest. She looked back at him, frowning. Should we leave him alone for a while if he's ill? She said. I'm sure he'll be okay, said Kit, trying to sound certain. And that's the end of this chapter. The next chapter, chapter 6, is called Wild Magic. Sorry, chapter 5, Wild Magic Makes Things Wonky. I'd really like to know what you think is in the park. Which wild creature you think is there that's making all the magic in the world go wrong. Until we see you soon, stay safe. Bye.